Okay, well, good morning, everyone. On behalf of all of us at Tomlin Music Canada and Steinway Piano Galleries of Canada, welcome to our second music teacher webinar. My name is Graham Blank, and I'm the Vice President of Tomlin Music Canada, and it's my great pleasure to be your moderator for today's webinar. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the unprecedented situation that we're all dealing with as we struggle to react to the impact of COVID-19. As music teachers, you have a profound impact not on the individual lives, but the overall culture of our society. Most of you have dedicated your entire careers to teaching students in person, and we know that many of you are struggling to transition to online teaching. Please know that all of us at Tomlin Music Canada are here to help any way we can. Our goal with this webinar is to help you transition to online music teaching as quickly as possible. So thank you for all you do as music teachers, and let's get started. This webinar will last approximately 45 minutes, and we'll have 15 minutes for questions at the end. A recording of this webinar will be available along with copies of the presentation and reference material after the broadcast, and links are included in the presentation and on all our websites. We have CJ McGilvery with us as our chat moderator, who will be commenting along the way and providing instructions to you. If you do have questions, please use the question button, the Q&A button, and feel free to comment in the comments, the chat button. And along the way, CJ will be answering some of the questions and fielding your questions to myself and Jeremy Cook to answer at the end. Okay, so let's get started. Our agenda for today, we're going to start with introductions. We'll introduce our music production division manager, Jeremy Cook, and then we're going to get into the technology requirements, so the hardware and software required to get started with online teaching. We'll go through some various teacher and student studio setups, and then Jeremy's going to take you through the optional hardware, pros and cons, different hardware configurations, and talk about how you can use technology to improve your online teaching experience. Jeremy also has some FAQs, and then we'll be happy to answer your questions at the end. Okay, so now I would like to introduce Jeremy Cook, our music production division manager and buyer for Tomlin Music Canada. It's located in Vancouver, BC. Jeremy, welcome.
Hey folks, how's it going? So today I'm really excited to do this. Just a little bit about me really quickly. I'm a bit of a techie nerd, been doing this for over 20 years, had a mastering studio, and I'm really into technology as a whole, but especially for recording. So I'm excited to give you guys a lot of tips today and get you guys started. Back to you, Graham.
Wonderful, thanks, Jeremy. Do you want to take us through the objectives for today's webinar?
Yeah, so here we can just go to the next slide here.
Are they not changing on your side?
I'm not seeing anything changing. Oh, here we go. Wait, there we go. So here are some objectives for today. Obviously, we want to get you guys started teaching music online. We're looking at helping you guys determine what hardware and software you're going to need, understanding how to connect everything together, as well as help you guys get the best audio and video quality. I'm very passionate about the audio quality, and I think that in a lot of ways we can't control the quality of the video sometimes with using all these different platforms, but we can definitely make the audio really good, and that's a compelling aspect, especially for you guys who are doing music. So as well, I want to help you guys find solutions to assist your students to get set up and have them optimize their situation regardless of what they own. And then, of course, to help you guys deliver the most engaging online teaching experience for your students, because if they're engaged using this technology, then they're going to be more willing to continue learning. So yeah, there you go. There's the agenda for today and a bunch of the objectives.
Wonderful, thank you, Jeremy. Okay, so I'm going to start with a little bit of a review of the webinar that we did last Friday. And again, the webinar today is being recorded. The webinar from last Friday is recorded and available online, and we'll provide the links at the end of this presentation, as well as the slideshow and additional resources for you. So I'm going to take you through a brief overview of the hardware requirements and the software requirements. This would be your device that you're using, and the video conferencing platform or app that you're using. And then I'll turn it over to Jeremy, who's going to take you through some of the optional hardware and software that you can use to enhance your teaching experience. Okay, so first of all, for the hardware, what we've tried to do is simplify this and give you the basics of getting started and a good, better, and best alternative. So a good, the basics of what you would need would be a smartphone and a fast internet connection. So if that's all you have, you are able to do online teaching. You would have that on your end, and the student would have that on their end. Better solution would be a tablet and a fast internet connection. So first of all, with a smartphone, the pros of a smartphone is affordable. Everybody has a smartphone, or most people have a smartphone, so they're easily available. They're generally easy to use, inexpensive because you already own one. The cons of a smartphone, using a smartphone for teaching and learning, is the small screen. First of all, it's very difficult to see and be able to do things like share screens and so on. The audio quality and the video quality, particularly the audio, is not as good as you can get, particularly on a notebook computer or a desktop computer. The video quality is generally pretty good depending on which video conferencing platform you're using. And again, it's a little bit difficult to share content. So the better solution would be a tablet. And this would be an iPad, an Apple iPad or an Android tablet. It has a larger screen, easy to use, and allows you to more easily share content, mark up, say, student scores and things like that. And again, the cons are primarily the audio quality of just using the device on its own. And again, Jeremy's going to talk to you a little bit later about some of the things you can do to improve audio quality on both a smartphone and a tablet. Video quality, again, depending on the platform that you're using. And a tablet is a little bit more expensive than a smartphone. And last, the best solution would be a notebook computer or a desktop computer, and then a webcam. And before I do that, I just wanted to mention, as far as a tablet computer, I have a 12-year-old son who's studying piano and bass guitar. And he had his first piano and bass guitar lessons this week. And on his end, he was using an Apple iPad, and the teacher was using an iPad in one case and a computer in another case, and had his first successful music lesson, and is excited for his next one's coming up in a couple of days. So, and that was all he had. So he just had his iPad, no additional microphones or anything else. We're going to enhance that this week, so he can plug his bass into his iPad and listen with headphones so he can have a better experience. But it's definitely doable if that's all you have. Okay, so the best solution would be a notebook computer or a desktop computer, and then a webcam that generally has a built-in microphone. So the pros of using an actual computer is, first of all, the larger screen. It provides for better audio and video quality, and particularly if you're using Zoom, which we'll talk about, it allows you to have the option of uncompressed or original audio. And one of the big disadvantages with both smartphones and tablets is that you are restricted to using compressed audio signal, and regardless of what platform you're using. So the big benefit of going to a personal computer, notebook, or desktop is you will be able to get significantly higher audio quality, and also the things you can do to improve the video quality. It's much easier to share content, and one of the cons is it's just more expensive. So those would be the very basics. And we have another webinar coming up this Friday, and again, we'll provide links at the end of this presentation. But what we're going to go through on Friday is advanced setups for music teaching online, and we're going to show how you can use a personal computer, and an iPad, an iPhone, and other cameras to have a multi-camera setup with really good audio and video. So we'll talk about that. We'll start with the basics here. Okay. So now we'll talk about video conferencing apps, which is the main software that you need to have to get started teaching music online. So when we had our panel discussion last week, the general comment from the panelists is that their goal as teachers was to be technology agnostic, which meaning to use the technology that their students were using. So in many cases, they were teaching on multiple platforms. If their students had WeChat, they were using WeChat video or WhatsApp, Facebook video, or Skype. If they had an Apple device on both ends, they could use Apple FaceTime. And but given the preference, they were all recommending to use Zoom or Zoom Pro. So we'll talk about the benefits of each of those. Okay, so first of all, on the good side, WeChat video, Facebook video, WhatsApp video, or Skype. The benefit of them is that they're widely used, and people generally, many of your students and families already have those apps installed on their phone. They're easy to use and they're free. Some of the cons is the audio quality. Again, all of these video conferencing apps use compressed audio to transmit the sound from device to device. So the audio quality is definitely not what you were able to provide in an in-studio teaching experience. The video quality, again, depending on the device and depending on the platform, generally these platforms tend to have a lower video quality than FaceTime or Zoom. And a big disadvantage is latency, which means delay. And particularly if you're trying to do things together with the student, the amount of delay is a significant barrier. And then the last one would just be screen sharing. It's not as easy to share on, actually you can't share on WeChat, Facebook, and WhatsApp, but you can share on Skype, but it definitely doesn't function as well and give you as many options that you have with Zoom. Okay, so the better option would be FaceTime, Apple FaceTime. Pros of this is the app is it's widely used, it's very, very easy to use, provides for HD video, and it's free. So the disadvantages are, again, the audio quality. The audio quality is generally better than the apps that I mentioned earlier, but it's still not totally uncompressed audio. Another disadvantage is Apple only. So it requires that you have an Apple device on either end, both for the teacher and the student. And FaceTime does not allow for screen sharing. So it does allow for video and audio to be transmitted. There's definitely things that you can do to improve the audio quality by adding microphones and headphones and things, which we'll cover a little bit later. But screen sharing is not available. Okay, so the best option, and again, over the last 2 weeks, I've heard from many educators across Canada, overwhelmingly, that educators are using Zoom or Zoom Pro to teach lessons. And so the pros of this is, first of all, it's available for all platforms. So if you have a Mac computer or Windows computer or an iOS or Android device, you can get a Zoom app installed. It provides for HD video. And if you're running on a computer, a notebook, desktop, computer, it allows for original sound, which is uncompressed audio, which is significantly better. And I should mention that both Jeremy and myself we're conducting this webinar using Zoom, and both of us have microphones on either end to improve the capture of our voices, and we're both using original sound, so it's uncompressed audio. Another big advantage for teaching is the ability to do screen sharing. So what I'm doing today is I'm sharing with you a PowerPoint presentation using Zoom for this webinar. And so you could use screen sharing to show musical scores, to mark it up, and then send that back to your students so they can be looking at an iPad, let's say, with the score that they're working on. You can be marking it up from your side, adding fingering, tablature comments, and save that and then send that file to them afterwards off. So Zoom has two different options. There's Zoom free and there's Zoom Pro. Zoom the free version of Zoom is perfect for the students. The students don't need to spend the $20 a month to get Zoom Pro, and not do the teachers. But if you want some of the more advanced features, particularly recording, you need to spend the $20 a month to get a Zoom Pro account. What I would recommend you do is sign up, if you haven't already, sign up for a free account with Zoom, and you can try using that. And if you find that you want to add some of the additional features, then you can upgrade at any time to the Pro version. With the Pro version, you are able to have up to 100 participants, and you can have unlimited video chat. So if you wanted to have a group lesson, as an example, we're just starting to teach this week in our Talmud Music Academy. You can have a teacher with up to 100 participants if you wanted. It allows for a whiteboard and markup, screen sharing, and original sound. So the cons of Zoom and Zoom Pro, you do need to have a personal computer, a desktop or notebook to use the original sound, and there is a cost if you want to use Zoom Pro. Okay, so just quickly, some music teacher setups. What do you need to get started? First thing would be a quiet room. Because you're using a webcam and microphone, it does pick up background noise. So if you have, fans, dogs, or family members, or the other things that are all happening in our houses right now, like your mobile device sending you reminders. So I turn my volume down here. A good instrument, obviously, which you would have in your teaching studio. Fast internet connection. So the recommended speed for internet would be 25 megabits per second, generally to do HD video conferencing. So there's different applications that you can run. One of them is called speedtest.org, I believe. So if you just go to any website or on your app, type in speed test, and you can check the speed of your connection. But generally, if you are able to run Netflix or TV that you're streaming over your internet, you likely have a fast enough connection for doing music teaching. Okay, so a smartphone, tablet, or personal computer is mentioned. Some sort of a webcam. So most smartphones, tablets, and personal computers now have webcams integrated, and microphones and speakers. So you don't necessarily need a separate webcam as long as there's one included in the device. A video conferencing app is mentioned. And then what Jeremy's going to talk about is optional music microphones, headphones, and speakers. And there's also available scanning, notation, educational software that will help you as a teacher enhance the experience. Okay, so for a student, same thing. A quiet room, a good instrument, musical instrument on their side, fast internet, again, smartphone, tablet, or personal computer, webcam, and then a video conferencing app. So I'm just going to show a couple examples of some teachers who shared their studios with us. This is, I can't say the title, Kimberly Sundell in Ottawa, Ontario. Has a fairly traditional, I would say, piano teaching studio. It's a beautiful Steinway K52 upright and Steinway grand piano. And she's added a microphone. You can see the microphone and webcam and personal computer, and then there's an iPad. So ability to switch back and forth between devices. So that would be a fairly typical teaching setup. And then this last picture I'm going to show you is Dr. Ross Salvosa, who I've known for many years in Vancouver, has now moved to Seattle and is teaching there. And the webinar that we're going to be doing on Friday is with Ross Salvosa, is going to take you through his setup and there we go, and show you how he is able to connect multiple devices. So in this case, he has a Macintosh computer, an iPad Pro, a second iPad. He's using a Zoom Q8 video recorder, compact recorder, and headphones and microphones. So he has an extremely elaborate system, and we're going to walk you through on Friday how to set up a system similar to this, multiple cameras and microphones and so on. Okay, So, okay, so I'm going to turn this over to Jeremy, and Jeremy is going to take you through the enhancements that you could add to your different devices to make your teaching experience and your learning experience better for the students. Jeremy?
How's it going, everybody? Hopefully you can hear me really clearly here. I just want to mention really quickly that we do have chat versus Q&A, so we will go through a lot of questions at the end of this, so please put those in the Q&A section, and of course the chat is great, and I can see a lot of people are interacting there. I'm going to probably be focusing mostly on the slideshow and just kind of going through all the things, but at the end I'll definitely go through a lot of the Q&A stuff as much as I can and try to address your questions. Hopefully you can hear my audio clearly. I think right now with a lot of people online, sometimes this is even outside of our control, where if the whole internet is being heavily taxed, we're going to see some bandwidth issues and so forth. We've got about 400 participants right now that are here watching this, and sometimes these things have an impact, whereas it's going to be probably just you and one other student. Hopefully that means you're not going to have a lot of issues with audio or video, right? So all the above need to be as good as possible. So hopefully we can kind of go through some of these things and talk about what you can do to improve the situation. So I'm just going to quickly go through a bit of more depth on the hardware because I think what captures the audio and video really make a difference. So yeah, smartphones and tablets, this is what your students are going to probably use. You may not use those things, but it certainly you can, and it works really well depending on the age of the device you have. Most of you guys already have these things. What's great about something like an iPhone is that it's extremely portable, so if you want to position it and you're not going to use any additional it looks like my volume is loud for some folks. Okay, so I'll just turn myself down a little bit. But yeah, so you can position in any location, which is really great. You can easily enhance this experience, of course, with the iPhone or an iPad by using and connecting microphones, potentially using headphones, getting portable stands, as well as increasing the lighting, because with these iPhones and iPads and various Android phones and so on, you're going to find yourself needing as much light as possible, because those sensors are not going to be as good as some of the dedicated stuff that's out there. And like I said, I think try to get devices that are at least 4 years old and better, because the older it goes, they just weren't built to handle streaming at the level that we're doing today. The other disadvantage of using smartphones and tablets is that they're generally a Wi-Fi only situation, and hardwired internet going Ethernet straight to your computer is always going to be a lot more stable when it comes to having consistent bit rate. And you'll see that that's why gamers never use anything but a dedicated computer for what they're doing, or hardwired, they don't use Wi-Fi. Okay, so next slide here. What I want to show you guys is, I'm just waiting for my next slide, Graham. Seems to be a bit of a lag on the slide, so I'll just keep talking while that's going on. Here we go. Okay, so here are a bunch of options to help out with your iPhone or your Android device. And one of the great sort of options are, some of these products are very platform agnostic, like the Shure USB microphones. They are also great with iPhones, Android, Mac, and PC, and you can get yourself a zero latency situation when you are plugging the headphones into the back, and we can talk about headphones a little deeper later. If we can go back to the next slide, Graham, I'm not quite finished on this one. You've also got packages and kits out there that can really help enhance your phone. So you can see here there's the IK Multimedia iRig system. It's a creator pack. It's $200, really affordable. We've got a bunch of those coming in probably this week or next week, but just worth mentioning because, again, this will work with iPhones, Android phones, Mac and PC even. You can also use this with, that microphone can be used with a DSLR, which is great. And again, it offers a zero latency headphone output. So if you want to use headphones and avoid feedback issues and all those kinds of things, you can plug directly into the microphone and now hear yourself in real time. And a lot of times what happens is there's latency between your device and you, but if you can come straight from the microphone into the headphones, it's going to help with that a lot. Okay, on to a few more options to enhance your smartphone and tablet. Let's just go to the next slide here. Strangely, there's always a big delay there. Okay, great. So next up, we're looking at things like the Rode Video Mic MEL. This attaches straight to the bottom of an iPhone. So this is an iPhone-only option. So for you Android users, this isn't going to apply to you, but it does allow you to have monitoring out the back, so you can listen to your microphone directly. And yeah, it's a really good sounding mic that's quite convenient to be able to attach to the bottom of your iPhone or iPad. So then the last thing I'm going to show you is there's the iRig Video Creator Bundle here. Again, really quite affordable. One of the cool things about this is it actually has a ring light that attaches to it, and we'll talk a bit more about lighting, but I think lighting is going to hugely enhance the quality. Right now, if you look at the room that I am in, and if you can see just what just look at my video, I've got a ton of light turned on, including the light that's coming from the outside, and it makes a really big difference in what it looks like. So worth considering. So let's move on to the next slide, Graham. So now we're going to talk a little bit about laptops and desktop hardware. Some of the biggest pros to this, of course, is you're going to have a powerful processor in there, much more powerful than you can get necessarily in an iPhone or an iPad. Or any kind of a tablet or smartphone, Android, etc. You can obviously have a very large viewing screen, which is great for some people who want to really be able to see what's going on with their students. Hardware internet is going to be super helpful. So if you want to hook Ethernet there, you're going to have better streaming quality. And the thing about this, though, is you're going to potentially require an additional video camera or a microphone. And then, of course, the last kind of, I would say, con here is that it is less portable. Laptops are certainly not bad, but if you're going to have a desktop situation, you're going to have to find a way to fit it into your system. Okay, so let's get into some ways to enhance and augment what you've got with those kinds of systems. Let's go to the next slide here. Okay, so there are a lot of different ways that you can configure for the laptop and desktop configurations. You have built-in webcams and microphones, and there is a difference definitely between using what's built in and, of course, adding things externally. You can also use the built-in webcam as well as then just add an external microphone, like a USB mic. And then you can, oh, lost the slide here, folks. Hang on one second. You can, oh, hold on, we're losing the slideshow here. There we go, one more. All right, thank you, slideshow's back. Okay, so then you can also add an external webcam, add external microphone. And then the last option is you can add an all-in-one webcam and microphone, and those are just a bunch of different ways. So first up, I'm just going to talk a little bit about adding an external USB microphone. This is an example of the Audio-Technica 2020 USB Plus. It's $209. The example I'm showing you is actually the package, which is $275, which includes headphones, a really cool boom arm so you can position the microphone if you're, say, sitting in an area where you can connect that boom arm to something. Great for Mac and PC. It also provides the direct monitoring. So again, this, if you're listening to my microphone right now, hopefully it sounds a lot better than what you can get built in. And what I'm going to quickly do is I'm just going to turn off my existing microphone. I'm going to use what's built into my Mac right now. And you can just hear the difference. So here's me using my iMac microphone, so that should sound kind of different now. And it may not actually sound vastly different to some of you, depending on what you're listening out of, but hopefully you can hear it. Okay, so I'm going to switch back to...
Actually, Jeremy, I'll just say that I'm also using, you're using a dynamic microphone, a USB mic. I'm using a condenser microphone, and I'll do the same thing. So this is the condenser. I'm using an AKG Lyra microphone that looks like this, and it sits on my desk.
Oh, you've muted there, Graham.
There we go. I totally turned myself off. Okay. So I'm going to switch. I'm running a Macintosh computer, and I have a Logitech webcam sitting on top of my second monitor. And so I'll do the same thing, and I'll just switch to my Logitech. There you go. So that's the difference in my signal as well. So in my ears, I don't hear anything different because my headphones are actually plugged into the AKG, but I'm sure you can tell big difference. So there you go.
Absolutely, yeah, it makes a huge difference. Now, just so everybody knows too, everything I'm showing you, there are a wide range of options. I'm just giving you examples, so these aren't the only options out there. We have some very affordable things, and then we have obviously things that go up to much more professional levels. So just consider that when you're looking at all these options. We have USB microphones that are even less expensive than this, so just bear that in mind. And we're going to see a bunch of different kind of configurations and options as we go through here. So on the next slide, we're going to see what it would be like if you wanted to use an audio interface. And there are packages. So for example, this is a package, but you can also build your own package. And, oh, we've gone to another slide here. Having a lot of challenges with the slides, guys. Sorry. All right, so this works with a Mac and PC as well. The advantage of something like this is that it's going to give you incredible audio quality. Comes with a great condenser studio microphone. It includes headphones and the cables and everything you need. Again, this is when you're ready to really step things up and you don't necessarily have to go this far. This is a great example of kind of an all-in-one option for you, and it's called the Scarlett Solo, and it's, you know, a really cool package. On to the next slide, we're going to look at, let's just see if that slide goes. Here we go. Oh, we're ahead one, I think here. All right, so this is an all-in-one webcam and microphone option. And I show you this because these are really cool. They're called the AVS. What's neat about something like this is that it includes a ring light. So again, we talked about lighting a little bit earlier. Lighting makes a huge difference in what your student is going to see. And you know, it really affects the sensor on these webcams. It also has a built-in microphone, and there's a headphone output on there as well. And then of course below here, I've got some additional video options. So you can even use, if you own, say, a DSLR that has what they call a clean HDMI output, you can use that as your camera, and that's going to give you an incredible webcam quality. But you will need to add a capture card for that. And again, that's really taking it to a lot of steps further. So something to think about, and you know, you guys can maybe drop some messages here, or at the end we've got an email, and you can simply ask me questions about that separately later. But we also have interesting things like Zoom makes a little product, which you can see in the video there, or on the slide, things like the Q8 and the Q4N that you can use as a webcam, or you can simply use as a video camera that has really great built-in microphones. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide, and we'll talk about a few more things here. And again, these are just options, so there are, you know, we can get into. There's a landing page I'll send you guys to that will help you guys pick and choose from those things. And even that is really a select grouping of products. So I want to talk about headphones really quickly here, because I think one of the things that people comment on are things like echo and feedback. And the advantage of putting in headphones or in-ear monitors into the mix is that you can eliminate a lot of that feedback and a lot of that noise. Oops, we've skipped slides again. Whoa, we're skipping a lot of slides again. I don't know what's going on here. So it is going to certainly improve the audio quality of what you're listening to. And it's going to create a lot of isolation for what's going on around you, which is sometimes useful. One of the disadvantages, of course, of going the headphone route is that it's a little less natural. It may cause ear fatigue over time if you've got pressure on your ears. For example, right now, because I'm using a dynamic microphone, I'm pointing it away from the speakers, and I'm listening to speakers right now, and there are different advantages there. So let's go to the monitors and talk about that a little bit. Adding monitors is really helpful. Yeah.
We just quickly to mention what I'm using are some Westone in-ear monitors. They're not very expensive. Jeremy has some options listed, but I personally like them. They isolate the sound from outside. I can hear my own voice in them, and it doesn't look, from a student perspective or an audience perspective, like I'm wearing headphones. So they're not overly obtrusive, and they sound great from my side and isolate the sound outside.
Yeah, no, It's useful. And the other thing is, you know, I think in a lot of cases, your students are going to have what they have. Obviously, you may want to encourage them if there are a lot of technical challenges with what they use to improve things. But even if they use, um, you know, some kind of a basic headphone with a little microphone on it, now you can at least put, say, if they're using a phone or a tablet, they can put the tablet over here. But if they're wearing the headphones, the microphone is by them. And so you're going to have a lot more proximity to the audio coming from, let's say it's a piano, or if they're singing, it's right there. So there's a lot of advantages to using even those kind of headphones for your students. So suggesting that might be helpful. Let's talk about studio monitors. Again, this is going to greatly enhance what you're listening to. And the advantage of this, of course, is that you're not wearing headphones, so it's going to be a very natural experience for you. It's not going to cause ear fatigue. It's not going to mess up your hair. Not that I have any, but that's cool. And of course, the disadvantage of this is that it is going to increase your chances of feedback and echo. Now, with something like Zoom, it does tend to mute your audio from whatever you're using, the device you're using. So hopefully there's not going to be too much feedback there. But if for some reason your student, for example, has a lot of things turned up, or you have things turned up a lot, you will get feedback. So you have to find that balance when you're using monitors to not turn them up too loud, or you will get echo and feedback. Okay, on to the next slide. So I want to talk quickly about, again, and I've kind of mentioned it throughout this, there are a variety of ways of improving the experience, and this doesn't necessarily require you to go buy a lot of things. I think we're going to suggest some things that you may want to consider. But really, for maximum engagement, I really think that improving your audio quality is one of the best ways, because video is going to vary depending on what's going on out there. But I think that the audio, there are a lot of challenges with audio not being good, and that's going to really drop the engagement. So finding ways to get your audio sounding better and getting the video looking better is important. So video tips, I definitely think right now, for example, I have 3 100-watt bulbs above me. I have a studio light over here. I also have an additional studio light on the other side of me. You can buy even some really basic things, but getting some powerful light bulbs in your room, or even you know, I'm just going to hold this up here. This is a Home Depot, you know, kind of construction light. And even something like this and throwing a 100-watt bulb in there, you can get 300-watt bulbs at Home Depot. It's just something to consider, because I think getting the light is going to help. I think also just improving the low noise sensor in whatever device you're using for capture for the camera, you may want to consider upgrading those things, you know, so that's worth considering. As far as audio tips go, I think one of the biggest things that comes up a lot is the position of the microphone. And often what people are talking about is, you know, I don't get good audio quality, and they've got let's say it's an iPhone or an iPad positioned so that the video looks good, but you're really far away from the individual. And that means that there's going to be a lot of compression happening online already from these platforms like Zoom or Google Hangouts, or any of these things that you might use. And you're going to suddenly notice that because of that compression, if there's not enough gain coming or a lot of volume happening in the microphone, it's going to drop in and out, and you're going to have a really hard time hearing things. So you're almost better to sacrifice what you can see with the student with getting that really close. Now, ideally, what you would do is you would separate the two things, that you would have your video camera, let's say that is your iPad, coming from over here, and then you've got your microphone separated in some way. You could do it on the most basic level by using some kind of headphones with a little microphone built in, and a lot of people have those. But if you could convince your student to get an external microphone that works with their iPad or works with their laptop, that is going to make a huge difference, because now they can bring that really close to the instrument. But that's not always going to be the case. That's not what people are necessarily going to be able to do. So anyways, that's worth thinking about. Okay, so that is, those are a few things to talk about, I guess, as far as improving the experience overall. Let's get into some questions that come up a lot, and I think this might help people. So why does your audio cut out or drop out? And this can also apply to the video as well. And there are generally 2 reasons. One is your internet speed is just not fast enough. I'm running 100 megabits per second here on a hard line. That's not always going to be the luxury of a lot of your students. So you're going to have to do the best with what you can. But yeah, I would say 25 megabits per second is the ideal rate as a minimum. And then the other thing, which I just talked about, is you're going to get a lot of dropouts, especially with the audio, if your student has whatever they're using to capture the audio far away from the instrument. So whatever you can do to work with your student, and it might be a compromise because you're going to need to see their hands or something. So it might be a compromise between getting it close enough and seeing the video properly and getting the microphone close enough so you can get the audio at a level that it's not going to cut in and out. So that's a question that comes up a lot, and I think that, again, you can control that on your side, and I think that's super helpful, but you're going to have to work with your students to figure that out. How do I configure my video and audio in Zoom? Yeah, so a lot of folks ask this question. It's in the preferences. There are options in there. When you click on the preferences, you can select your audio source, and you can also preview your video. That's a super important thing to do before you start your lesson, is you can actually test both of these things. You can test your speakers, you can test your microphone, and you can take a preview of your video. And again, that is in the preference window. On to the next questions. So, do I really need a better webcam or microphone? And the answer is, ultimately, depending on the device you have, not necessarily. We recommend it, and obviously it's going to really enhance the experience, but I think first up, with some knowledge and some practice, you can definitely improve using what you have. So I definitely think we've talked about it a bit already, but I think if someone's using a smartphone and they are trying to improve that experience, just find a way to, again, bring it closer to where the audio is being captured. So those are some things you can do to kind of use what you have. But I think everybody should try to consider at some point looking at ways to enhance the experience through a different hardware. Here's another question. When streaming, I'm having a problem with echo. And we did talk about it again a little bit earlier. Again, this usually happens due to some kind of feedback loop. If your speakers are turned up really loud, or let's say it's a laptop and you've got everything turned up really loud, it will cause a bit of a feedback loop. So if in my case, for example, you're using a microphone, point that away from where the source is coming from, the speakers in this case, or simply turn your volume down a little bit. If you turn your volume down, it makes a big difference. And finding that balance, if you can turn that volume down for your speakers coming out of your laptop, or let's say you have external monitors. But ideally, if you could put headphones on, and they can be little in-ear buds, they can also be full-size headphones, that will completely eliminate any kind of echo feedback on your side. Now, it might happen on the student side, and you're going to, again, have to work with your student and say, hey, can you turn down your device a little bit? And then all of a sudden you'll notice that that echo will go away. So that's answering that question for the most part there. So I guess we're going to get into some Q&A, and I'm going to kind of quickly scroll through this, and you're going to see a slide while I'm doing that. And you're going to see kind of, I guess, a link here to various products. So let's get into some Q&A. Okay, so here's the first question. Yeah.
I'm able to see them now too, so
perfect.
Figured out.
Okay, so specific to sound quality with the piano, is there any setting that can help with hearing pedaling? I'm sure everyone has noticed how that has been an issue. Wow, that is a good, very specific but good question. What do you think, Graham?
I can try to answer that. I think what Jeremy was talking about earlier with the types of microphone you're using. So let's say you're enhancing the experience and you're adding a dynamic microphone like Jeremy's using. That is going to pick up in a close proximity to his voice, but it won't pick up the instrument or the sound of the room as much. So what I'm using is a condenser microphone, and some of the teacher setups that you saw earlier had a large microphone on a stand. The benefits, you probably, in my voice, you'll hear more echo than you do in Jeremy's. You're hearing some more room sound because the condenser picks up in a much larger space. So if you're using a condenser microphone, it works really well for instruments like piano or voice. Guitar, I've tried using this with guitar, and you will be able to hear your performance and also some of the things like pedaling a lot better with a condenser microphone.
Yeah, and there's advantages to each type of technology, and certainly for a more broadcast kind of sound, this kind of microphone is great, but it doesn't necessarily capture the room. It's really handy for me if I'm typing, you're not going to hear that. But in a case where you really want to capture the entire instrument, Graham's correct, because a condenser mic is going to give you a ton of sensitivity, and that sensitivity means that you're going to capture everything, which does include hopefully all the pedaling.
Right.
Okay, so let's go to the next question. Here we go. Does the iRig option include the stand? Yes. So there are a variety of bundles. You'll see those on the landing page that you see in the slideshow here. There are stands included. You can also buy the stands separately, but the stands are included, and some of them also include a ring light. And so what that does is it provides you a bunch of extra lighting that you can point towards yourself. You can position that on the desk. The other thing about the stand that's included with a lot of those bundles is that the stand itself, it has an extension on there, so you can position, let's say it's an iPhone on that system, you can position it high or low or whatever. And again, it's iPhone, Android. It works for any of those options. So hopefully that answers that question. Here's another question from Alan. While teachers can set up this great equipment, most students are stuck with the iPhone or laptop with an internal mic. What is the best positioning of a phone or laptop to get the best audio quality? I think the first part I would say in answering that question is how critical is it for you to see what the student is doing? Because I think that's going to be the compromise is first, do you need to see what they're up to? If mostly what you need to do is listen to them, then I think you could sacrifice the video a little bit and bring that object as close to the instrument they're playing. So if they're playing a guitar, get in front of the guitar. I think of, a microphone as a human ear. What is the best position for your ears if you were in that room listening to that student? You want them to put that in that position. But the compromise is if I want to see what the student's doing, I'm going to need to get that student to position that object in a way that's somewhere between the best for the audio and best for the video. So again, if you can separate it, and I know that's not always a luxury, in the case of a lot of the smartphones that maybe your students are using or the tablets, they often either already own headphones that have a little microphone built in. You could at least get them to use that, because at that point, the microphone is right by their face, which is usually right by the instrument. And then they can, if they can get a long enough cord, they can put the phone or the tablet a little further away, and then you can try to find a happy middle ground there. So that would be my answer to that question. I hope that kind of helps, because I think it's always a compromise.
Maybe if I can add to that, I'll just tell you, my son had a bass lesson this last week with an iPad. So what he did is he sat on the couch like he normally does. We put a chair in front of him with his iPad and positioned it so that the teacher could basically see both his picking finger and his fretting finger in the frame. And he was just using his bass guitar going through his little amplifier next to him. And he was using the speakers and the microphone of the iPad. And it frankly worked just fine. This week, we're going to add some headphones to enhance the experience. He had his piano lesson. And here's a great tip from some piano teachers from our last webinar. If you want to see the hands of the student, so if the student is sitting at the piano, if you position their iPad, say to the left of the keyboard or to the right of the keyboard, depending if you want to focus on right or left hand, but have it in a position where it's maybe right at the bottom of the lowest note on the piano. So you can, if the student turns towards the camera, you can see their face, but you can see their hands. And generally the proximity is close enough. You're only a couple feet away from the microphone. That's how my son had done his piano lesson the other day, and it worked fine. Another suggestion for the teacher is if the student has their device on the left-hand side, so the bass side of the piano, and if that's the instrument you're doing, put your webcam or device on the right side. And from the student's perspective and from your perspective, it feels like you're sitting side by side. So you're turning to the right to look at the student's turning to their left, which is more close to what would have happened in the studio. So that would be the suggestion. The other thing that you could do, what Jeremy said, is put the device close to you. If you're going to be sharing music with the student, during part of the lesson, they could just simply move their iPad onto the music desk of the piano, if that's the instrument you're teaching, and then you could share the music from your screen, and then they could move it back if you want to see their hands. So there are some ways to get around it with one device to see multiple views.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, let's go on to some more questions here. So we've got a question here about Graham's using condenser microphone. Yeah, I'm using a dynamic microphone, and this is simply something that I tend to use already. So this is a Sennheiser dynamic microphone. There are a lot of options out there, and certainly the advantage of something like this is that it doesn't capture a lot of the sound outside of, it's a directional microphone, so it's not a whole lot is going on behind it, so I can point it away from the speakers, for example, and I'm not going to get feedback. But it does not have the same advantages that Graham has, which is you're going to have a much broader, more accurate sound of the entire space. So anyways, that's that question. Question from Tim said, would you recommend Bluetooth headphones like AirPods for either teaching or studenting? I certainly don't think they're a bad choice. I will say this is that you are going to get latency, and this is something that comes up that people talk about, or they refer to as lag. Latency means that now you're going to have a delay between what you're saying and, you know, the on the other side when they're going to actually hear it. So if the student has them on, there may be a little bit of a visual delay where you're going to see them moving their hands, and then the sound is going to come to you a little bit later. So not the end of the world, but I think that that is and it's going to be a challenge either way with latency. I know a lot of people have questions about, can we all play together? Can I have two students, for example, using Zoom and playing together? That's going to be challenging. And the best way to solve that problem is probably to focus on one person being the anchor, and then everybody playing to that person is probably the closest you're going to get to that. But there's always going to be a bit of a delay. You can even see with our slideshow today, there's a little bit of delay that happens between when the slide is supposed to come next. And so so everything you add that adds additional latency is going to create that problem, and it's going to even make it worse. So I don't think it's a bad idea to necessarily use those things. And if that's what a student has, absolutely, because it's going to be way better than them using what's coming directly out of their device. So you should give it a try. I mean, maybe experiment with your student and see what happens there.
Our next question is listening to headphones or playing or singing at the same time the students cannot hear themselves.
Oh, yes.
So they're in and out of tune. So the way around this, and I can show you this, maybe. So I'm using this AKG Lyra microphone, condenser microphone. And on the bottom of it, you see there's two connections. One is a USB and the other one is a headphone. And if I plug my headphones into my computer or into the iPad, what I'm hearing is the delayed, or I'm only hearing what's coming back from the other side. I'm not hearing myself. And so it is a problem if you're trying to sing, you're not able to sing in pitch. With any sort of a microphone, whether it's a dynamic or USB microphone, they generally have a microphone input. So what I'm hearing in my headphones, my voice is coming directly through the microphone with zero latency. So it's not going through the internet and coming back to me. It's going right into my microphone, and then I'm hearing the rest of this signal, which is Jeremy, coming back. And so there is a slight delay with that, but it's a much better experience. So that definitely helps with, I'm using in-ear monitors, which are totally sound isolating. I can't hear anything that's happening in the room. And if I was not able to hear myself, I can't hear what I'm playing, I can't hear what I'm singing. So I actually had my first Zoom jam session the other night. And as Jeremy said, there is some issues with latency, but what we were able to do is all three of the people that were playing were using microphones that had their own headphone monitor included. And we just decided whoever was going to be the lead. So in one case, it was a singer, and I had a guitar player, and I was playing piano. And it wasn't bad, as long as we all followed the singer and just focused on their timing. There was a little bit of a delay, but after a while, you can kind of adjust to it. So that's the way to get around it.
If I can add to that, the other old-fashioned solution to this problem, which you see a lot on, hopefully the video will switch to me. You see a lot on I don't know, various live concerts and whatever, you can take one ear off. This is a very common studio trick. Take one ear off your headphones or take one ear out of the in-ears, and now you'll be able to kind of hear yourself, and it's a lot more natural for people to do. So that's also another option. So the thing that Graham was talking about as well is it's referred to as direct monitoring or as input monitoring. So the microphone that you choose, if you do add a microphone to your system, is you want to have a headphone output that gives you direct or input monitoring. So all the USB mics that we're suggesting, generally speaking, offer that option. And if it doesn't, that just means that you're only going to be able to hear back through the software, and that's going to cause latency and delay and lag getting the sound back. I guess we should do a couple more questions and see how we're doing for time. Actually, we're almost at an hour here. Okay, so here's a question about what is the brand and model of the in-ear headphones Graham is using? Oh, you're on mute, Graham. So I think he's using the Westone headphones. We also have Shure in-ear headphones, as well as Sennheiser. I would say probably the number one and most popular one is the Shure SE215, really popular in-ears. People use them and buy them every day, and they're really stable. There's a lot of really good options. The Westone sound fantastic, and so did the Sennheiser. So you can choose those based on your preference and taste. Another question here. Can you talk a bit about how teachers can use the screen share feature to share sheet music to their students' screens and make live annotations and markings?
Okay.
I think Graham can talk to that one.
Sure. And we're actually, our webinar on Friday, which there is a link at the end of this presentation, and it will be posted online. You can download it. We're going to go through that in depth, but the simplest way, and I'll tell you what my son's teachers did this last week. One teacher had us scan. I just used my camera phone with a scanning app, and I scanned his music that he was working on that already had the fingering markings from prior lessons as a PDF. So there was about 10 pages. So I think five pieces, a couple pages each. I scanned those. I emailed them to the teacher so the teacher could look at the music. So she had the music in front of her, and my son had his actual book on his desk. Another popular app, so that's one way you can do it. The other way is just take a picture, like literally take a photo with your camera and share that back and forth from the teacher to the student. And you can use screen sharing for that. There's a popular application, and we will talk about that on Friday. It's called Fourscore, F-O-R Score, S-C-O-R-E. And it's really effective. It runs on Mac or PC, I believe, and it allows you to import music in a PDF format, share the screen, mark it up, save that, and then you can share that afterwards. So those will be kind of the popular options. We'll go through that in depth on Friday.
Yeah, okay. Absolutely. Oh, I was going to just quickly say, Graham, that someone put a really great tip in here in the chat area. Okay. So if you guys are all looking at the chat section, the tip is from Alan. Thanks, Alan. If using Zoom, you can tell students to adjust the advanced audio settings and turn off background noise suppression. Right. And what he's talking about there is when you have removed background noise suppression, it actually is kind of shutting the audio down when it sees a limited amount of input. And so that suppression is going to change the audio quality, and it will start cutting in and out. So that's a really great tip, and I do appreciate Alan adding that in here.
And that's also, and this is available again if you're using a Macintosh or Windows desktop or notebook computer. Go under audio settings and then go under advanced settings. And in there, first of all, you can turn on original audio, which gets rid of the compression, and you can turn off the background noise cancellation and also intermittent noise cancellation. And intermittent noise, sometimes I've had this happen where, particularly on a percussive instrument like a piano, it will actually mute the piano when you're playing, when you're not playing and then you play again, it'll actually suppress that sound. So if you turn those things off and you're using natural audio, you're going to get the best experience. If you do have background noise, or there's a dog barking or a siren goes by or something like that, you will hear those things. If they're turned on, you won't. But generally, if you have a quiet room, that's the best way to go.
Yeah, I think it's ideal. It's better to get too much information in the microphone than having things cut off and cut out. There's a last question from Jeremy. Great name, by the way.
Mhm.
Any suggestions for choirs, choral classes? I will just answer that a little bit and just say that, especially for doing large groups of people, I think definitely a microphone is going to make a big difference if you're going to do that. Um, I don't know if you're talking about individuals, and I don't know if we can qualify this question a bit, but the suggestion may be that you're going to have multiple people singing at the same time from different locations. That's going to be tough, and I'm not sure,
Yeah.
Graham, if that's that easy to do. But
Yeah.
if everybody's together and they can sing at the same time, and then somebody's on the other end of it and they're coaching them, that would definitely work. But
Yeah,
boy,
maybe a suggestion. So we actually spent this last week getting our Tomlin Music Academy teachers set up for online teaching, and we teach quite a few group lessons. So the setup that we're using is in a piano classroom. We either have an acoustic or a digital piano or both. We have a desktop computer, a condenser microphone, so they'll pick up the room sound and also the teacher's voice. And we're starting our first group classes today, actually, shortly after this webinar. I'm going to be jumping onto that. So what we've done is all of the students will be online at one time with the teacher. So the teacher will see 10 video screens. The first thing is asking all of the students to mute their sound. So this would apply to a choir too. It is definitely not. It's very difficult to do ensemble, to have all 10 students playing together. Things that you would do in a group class, or same with a choir or string ensemble or so on. So the approach is having all of the students mute their microphones, having the teacher would lead the group, and the students would play along with the teacher. And so they will hear themselves with the teacher. And then the other thing you can do is just go one by one, unmute each student and have them perform for the other students. So you're teaching ensemble kind of one at a time, but everybody gets to hear one student at a time. So I would say the same thing for choir. It's currently not possible. There's just too much delay to be able to really, conduct a virtual Zoom orchestra where everybody's in sync. There's too much latency at this point. So those are things that, frankly, people are hard at work right now, because there's many people all over that are wanting to perform collaborative music online. So okay.
yeah, I think that, the technology might get there at some point, but right now there's no way to timestamp everybody to sync them up. So I guess one last question really quickly to answer here. Somebody did ask, I guess they got bumped off because they had a crash on their side. They were just asking about AirPods, and I think we did talk about them. But again, the pros of AirPods is that you can have proximity to where you're playing. The cons will be that it's going to add some latency. And I think that pretty much wraps it up for today. I think we're going to run out of time here. So maybe just go through the final slides, Graham, and we can wrap it up.
Perfect. Okay, so all of the products that Jeremy talked about today and more are available on the Tomlin Music website. And if you just go to our homepage, you'll see a button that says Online Teaching Essentials, and click on there, and it will give you a list of all the products in groups, USB microphones, tablet microphones, etc. So that's the first thing. There's some questions about where do I find them. There you go. And then additional webinar resources. So we had our first teacher webinar last Friday. It was recorded, and the slideshow, the video, and additional resource material was posted online.
Yeah, I think the chat's there as well, right?
Say that again.
I think the chat is also there. So if anybody's commented in the chat, you can look it up.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. That's right. The chat is included in the video. Thanks for mentioning that. So what we've also done with all of our websites is we now have some new landing pages that we'll be continuously adding content. So tomlinmusic.ca/educators. You'll find the link to today's webinar, last week's webinar, and we'll continue to add as we go along. There'll be upcoming events that we're planning for teachers and students. As an example, we have in our Ottawa store, they're starting an online piano competition that will be a fun way of students to actually be able to perform for other people in their homes. Master classes, workshops, recitals. We're doing online recitals, and we have all kinds of information that we're continuing to add. We've got Many of our staff across Canada are at home right now, and they're creating video content on how to for all different instruments, guitar, recording, piano, etc.
Yeah, from
And
basic to advanced.
from basic to advanced. So there's the links. So video of today's webinar. This is being recorded, and it will be. It'll take us a little while to do a quick edit on it, and then we'll post it up by the end of the day from the above links. And you, everybody who's registered today, so we had over 400 and something teachers attend. So thank you all for joining us. We will send an email to you directly with the links to today's webinar where you can download the content as well as last week's content. And let's see what else. If you want to get in touch, here's my email address and website, and here's Jeremy's email. You know, there was a whole bunch of questions today that, or some questions today that weren't answered live. We will either respond to them or definitely direct you to the right music specialists throughout our stores in Canada.
Yeah, I'd just like to say too, you know, I wish we could answer all the questions. So definitely, please email me if you have further questions, because it's tough to fit it all in, and I really want to make sure we help everybody that's on today.
Great. Our next webinar will be on Friday, 10 o'clock, and this is going to be advanced setups. There should be a 4 there for online music teaching. So we are going to take you through a step-by-step guide on how to set up a multi-camera Zoom video studio for online music teaching. And my good friend, Dr. Ross Salvosa, who's from Vancouver, is now teaching down in Seattle. And he is one of the most elaborate systems I've seen. If those of you are connected with him on Facebook, he's been generous enough to share his setup. So we're going to be going through that in depth, and we're going to show you exactly how to add a second device or a third device to be able to have multiple camera views. So you can have the right hand, the left hand, the screen with the sheet music, overhead. You know, there's all kinds of things you can do that make it, you know, greatly enhanced. And again, this will be in the, we will send you a link today as a follow-up email. That there will be a registration link for that if you want to attend. And it's also included in the slideshow. So I think that's it. So I will just say, Jeremy, if you have any closing comments, and then I'll just kind of let everybody know where they can contact everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the final thing I'll just say is that, you know, with a lot of practice and patience, I think this is doable for everybody that's probably watching this right now. So I just encourage everybody to spend time, experiment, and troubleshoot. And I think that, you know, if you can stick with this, over time, it's going to become easier and easier, because I think for some people this might be a bit of a technological jump forward, and you know, we're here to help in any way possible in that regard. And for those of you that are a little more comfortable, it's just a matter of changing a mindset, and I think this is going to be very exciting, because what this allows people to do is now teach not just locally but abroad, right? So now you can have students not just from in your own area but from very far away, and I think that could mean a lot more exciting things for you, right?
Wonderful. Thanks so much for joining us, Jeremy. So here's all our contact information. As Jeremy said, we are here to help you. Music teachers are essential to having a thriving music and arts community. So we thank you for what you do, and we are definitely here to help you. So our stores in British Columbia, our staff have been trained on how to do this. We've done a webinar for our teams here on how to help teachers get set up with online lessons. So please reach out to any one of our staff in our Vancouver stores, as well as our teams in Calgary, Toronto, and Ottawa. So same thing, we've done a webinar with them, and they are here to help. I mean, they're happy to walk you through on a one-on-one basis, help your students. And, you know, I think more than ever, we know that parents and their children and teachers are at home, and they have lots of time. They don't have the structure that they once did, you know, going to school from 9 to 3 and then after school activities. And what you do as teachers is essential to help bring back some structure and normalcy to everyone's lives. So thank you so much for joining us today, and please let us know if we can help you.